case 211 of 2021 for 3821 Mintwood Street. And the applicant is identified as Ryan England. Do we have Mr. England? Oh, Caroline, JJ is in the waiting room. If you could let him in. All right, Mr. England, is there anybody else who's going to be testifying with you this morning?
Good morning. We should be joined by the owner, Ed Engler, who probably won't testify, but is just present in case.
Okay. We have Mr. Richardson. That's good. Thank you. And do we have Mr. England?
Ed Engler.
Engler, sorry,
Yep,
beg your pardon.
Not related, but
somewhere back in the shades of time.
Sure.
All right. Okay. So if you could, I'd like to just get everybody sworn in. Mr. Engler, even if you don't think you're going to say anything, it would help at the outset if you swear in. Do each of you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
All right, thank you very much. And Daniel, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 211 of 2021 for 3821 Mintwood Street. The application's for the new construction of a single-family dwelling. They're requesting a variance from 903.03.d.2. Maximum height 40 foot, 3 stories is permitted, and 4 stories is proposed, and 15-foot front setback is required, and 7 foot is proposed.
All right. This is looking a little familiar. Mr. England, I'm assuming you're going to walk us through what you're proposing here.
Sure, yes. Good morning. This is the mirror image of what we presented 6 or 8 weeks ago. I want to start with the variances.
Okay.
I do believe the reviewer may have left out the 0 foot side setback on purpose, but I do believe that we should be reviewed for the 0 foot side setback, because if one structure were not built, then it wouldn't be a contextual setback. We are not.
You might have to explain. I mean, you're testing our perfect recall, so you might have to explain the side setback issue in the context of a site plan.
Sure, we'll discuss it when site plan comes up. We are not applying for a 4th floor. We may need to clarify or possibly adjust our plans, but we're not asking for a 4th story variance. And then this parcel does extend to the alley, and as it is proposed to be an attached dwelling, we will need relief from 91409J1 regarding the curb cut at the front of the building.
And again,
And
that
lastly,
might make more sense if you show us a site plan.
Yeah. And then lastly, I just want to do an address kind of disambiguation. There are 2 parcels with the address 3823 Mintwood Street, and the subject parcel is 49P139, and we're referring to that as 3821 Mintwood Street. So when I say 3821, that's the subject parcel here, and that's 49P139. Okay, next slide. This is our context. We're between Penn Avenue and Liberty, between 38th and 39th Street in that section of Lawrenceville, primarily residential, exclusively residential block, immediately adjacent across the alley to Penn Avenue Business District. Next slide. This is the historical map. As you can see, the red rectangle indicates our site. That's not the whole parcel. The parcel extends all the way to the alley. But as you can see on the parcel, there were 2, there was a structure on our parcel and a structure on the adjacent parcel sharing a 0 foot setback. There also was a structure on the rear of the parcel, and all the structures on the parcel are no longer existing. They've been demolished for quite some time. Next slide. This is the context looking east on Mintwood Street. You know, there's nothing on the site, so you can't really see, but the arrow indicates where it is. And you can see the relatively low setbacks of the structures on the street. And we'll, yeah, next slide, please. And this is just looking the other direction on Mintwood Street, again with the arrow indicating where the site is. Next slide. And this is more of a direct photo looking at our site. So our site is has a little bit of setback on each of the two. Well, our site is half of the space between the two structures, and you can see there's cars parked there. It's kind of this gravel area.
Can I ask you for a second, just from a topography standpoint, is there a drop off at the rear
There
to the
is.
way?
Yeah, and so that's exactly where I was going. So the site is flat at the front, as you can see, and then the drop off is significant. It's steep. It's about 15 feet, and the drop off is kind of concentrated towards the rear, and this is why parking on the alley isn't feasible. You've got terrain, you've got slope instability issues, and just significant barriers to putting parking on the alleyway. Next slide. And here's our site plan. So I'll just kind of go back to our variances. We're proposing the 7-foot contextual front setback, and we believe that's appropriate for the context of the street. We're proposing a 0-foot side setback, and with the two dwellings here on the plan, you can see that it could be interpreted as a 0-foot contextual setback. But since there are different zoning applications, I believe we need
is the 0 only on the interior of the two structures, or is it, do you comply with the setback on the interior side that's shared with a different property?
Correct. So on the shared, with the different property interior side setback, we have 3 feet, which is a contextual,
which is
by right.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, and then yeah, as you can see, we're proposing a curb cut on the front of the site, and as we discussed, the rear access has those topography challenges. Next slide. Here are our elevations, again showing both structures with 3 stories above grade, 1 story partially below grade, with the parking being in that partially below grade. Next slide. So just some commentary on the side setback, which we've also already discussed. And again, this parcel and the mirrored parcel have separate owners that are working in cooperation on this project. And our client here, Magnolia Grove, Mr. Engler, owns the other immediately adjacent parcel, number 3823. So there are no abutters who are not part of the project.
Well, which side is 3823?
So if you're looking at that photo, it would be to the right. So and you can't see the structure in the photo that's on the.
Got it.
But there is a structure there. It's occupied. It's rented.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Next slide. And then this is just just for consideration of the contextual front setback.
Yeah. I think we recognize that.
Yeah. And unless there's any questions, that's it. Oh, community outreach. We talked to Dave Brigham on Lawrenceville United, and they are opposed to the front curb cut as a matter of course. And I do believe the zoning board has a letter from them. But given the difficulties, we don't believe that we can achieve rear parking.
But the only front parking access on the street are for vacant parcels. I'm seeing the 1 car sticking out at the end there. There are no garage structures that are accessed from the front on Mintwood.
I do not have that answer, but I think even if there's one exemption, clearly the norm for the street is to have on-street parking only.
But is it on-street parking? It looks like it's on both sides of the street.
It is on both sides of the street. There is the curb cut already existing on our site. Because our site has been used for parking historically. And I don't want to assert there's a permitted curb cut, that I do not believe there is, but.
And have you started a process with Domi for a curb cut approval?
Do not believe we have.
Okay. I didn't have any other questions. Ms. Burton
Hey,
Falk or
Ryan.
Mr. Richardson?
Ma'am, I'm sorry. This is Edward Engler, the other owner with Mr. England.
Uh-huh.
And I do know of some other garages facing Mintwood Street on that block.
Okay, they're just not depicted in any of the presentation materials. That's fine. It was just it was a question
Actually,
I had.
if you look at this picture that's showing now, you can see the garage on the left. I think it's on the red fronted building. I might be looking at the wrong thing, but
Oh, I thought that was just a stair structure, but
well, I'm looking at Google Street View, and there's clearly a garage right across the street.
okay. All right. Thank you for that input. And Mr. Richardson or Ms. Burton Falk, any questions?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
I have no questions.
Okay. And Caroline, do we have anybody else who would like to participate in this hearing?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. And Daniel, can you confirm as to whether we had any correspondence from the community group?
I'll have to check on that. We may have received a letter from the previous application on Midwood.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation, and we will close the hearing for this matter and move on to the next.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you kindly.
Okay. Just checking my time here. The next case of the morning is zone case 217 of 2021 for 5216 Lotus Way. The applicant is identified as Matt Stuckey. Do we have Mr. Stuckey? Ms. Whitney, could you just identify? Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh,
There we go. Now we can. Okay.
Thank goodness.
Are you appearing on behalf of Mr. Stuckey?
He should also be on. He texted me to tell me he was on, so I'm not really sure what's happening, but
Okay.
I'm doing the primary presenting.
That was going to be my next question. And in addition to you and Mr. Stuckey, anybody else we should be looking for?
I believe that the homeowners are on the call, but I don't think that they wanted to speak. That would be Sarah and Dan Harold.
All right. Well, we want to make sure that everybody is sworn in. So, Caroline, are you seeing Mr. Stuckey?
I am not.
Okay. Well, since Ms. Whitney said that she's doing the primary presentation, we will keep an eye out for him, but we'll move on. Ms. Whitney, do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Actually, it's actually Joe Casey. They just texted me. They're in under Joe Casey, not as Matt Stuckey. They're in together. And I guess that's
just, is it what, there's a Robert Casey.
That would be him.
Okay. Can we? All right. Oh, the wonders of modern technology. Could whoever's appearing under the Casey name, just like let us know you're there, and we'd also like you to swear in.
Yes, I'm here.
Who is we? Who is I?
Robert Casey and Matt Stuckey.
Thank you. There you go. All right. Do each of you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board, should you testify, would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Whitney, the floor is yours.
Hi. So that we are presenting today in regard to two new townhouses at what is currently 5216 Lotus Way. However, this is actually facing Duncan Street. So if you go to the next page, you'll see that we did the posting on Duncan Street. And if you actually flip to the following one, this is our posting, the time dated. This is where it's located, which is in Upper Lawrenceville, between Lotus Way and Duncan Street, sort of the middle of the block between McCandless and 52nd. If you could just go to the following one, this shows a little bit better that the owners currently have a residence that faces Lotus Way, and just due to maintenance and preparation for some future plans to have elderly family move in, they'd like to replace this with one facing Duncan that they feel would be more appropriate to their lifestyle. And they actually also want to subdivide their lot so that they can develop a second unit for sale, largely in order to help them, finance this project. So if you look at the requirements, I've bolded where we're seeing setback concerns that we're requesting a variance on. The front setback, we would like to be closer, 3.61 feet from the front. And then in the rear, we would like to build a garage on one of the properties, the one we're going to call Lot 2, which would be just a foot from the property line. The other one is actually fine. We didn't have a rear setback issue.
Sorry, slow down for just a second here. When you're saying you're considering subdivision of the parcels,
Yes.
Is that one parcel on Lotus and one on Duncan, or are you proposing splitting down the middle so both would extend from Lotus to Duncan?
I apologize, both on Duncan, and we would split down the middle. And it's a large enough parcel that both would still be 2,100 square feet after they are subdivided.
But are you creating the hardship? I mean, are you creating the need for a variance by the subdivision that you're proposing?
Yes, we are. We are creating the hardship. So if you, I have some additional documents that may help. We actually are only
just one more before we move off of this one, though. Just can you explain a little bit of the topography in that block from Lotus to Duncan? Is there a grade change? I mean, what's it looking like over there?
There's a significant grade change. Yes. So Duncan is significantly higher. Really, it ends up being approximately a full story higher at Duncan than it is at Lotus. Which is, part of why this development is necessary, because again, what we're looking at is development in order to have some people with some mobility issues move into this property, and it's very difficult to do that at Lotus. And I have some photos to show you.
Okay.
That there's some challenges back there, and there is actually an existing retaining wall issue too. So we actually. For the side setbacks, we only have a hardship on one of the sides. The other side, we can manage the 3 feet, which would be required under the contextual setback. If we can go to the next page, this shows our existing condition, which does actually show that grade change from the front to the back. And it's a little bit hard to see at this distance, but there is a retaining wall at the front. That's the reason why it's not steeper of a grade, but it does drop off pretty quickly from Duncan. If we can go to the next slide, this shows that we have two lots. We're subdividing into two lots. We're going to call one of them Lot 1 and the other Lot 2 for the time being. So again, in regard to Lot 1, which if you're on Duncan Street, this would be the one to the left. Lot 1, the only variance issue we would have with this would be in regard to that front setback. And then we actually had, we aren't entirely sure how to view the decks because we would like to attach the two decks. So we will be meeting the side setbacks in regard to the exterior neighbors, but these two properties, Lot 1 and Lot 2, we'd like those decks to be attached to each other. So I believe that means we're actually asking for a variance in regard to that also.
That would be an interior side
Now,
setback.
Lot 2 is, yeah, I'm sorry. Correct.
Carry on.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, yeah, we were sort of confused about that ourselves, sorry. So lot 2, we would like that residence to span the entire width. So basically have 0 side yard setbacks on both sides. And we would like the garage to do the same. And then we would also like that garage to be just 1 foot from the property line in the rear, as opposed to 5 feet back. So I think we've highlighted what those issues are in the setbacks listed on the side there. But if we could move ahead, I can show you some evidence related to this. The next slide shows that we are maintaining the height requirements. We're 3 stories, we're under 40 feet. If we could go to the next one, this starts to show what we see as our hardship here. So essentially, one of the issues we have is that in regard to the front setback, if you look at the neighboring properties, we believe that they are closer to the property line than 3 feet. In fact, we believe that they are probably at 0 or close to it at the property line. So I think we meet the neighborhood context setback requirements. But I just, I don't know why that wasn't, something that was understood in advance. So we're requesting that this be viewed as contextual to the neighborhood. If we go to the next slide, this should show a little bit better the other issue we have, which is the retaining wall. So we have an existing retaining wall that goes 0 to the property line on one side. And then on the other side, there's actually a set of stairs that come down. If we could look at the next page, this is a report that we've gotten from a geotechnical engineer that states that basically in order to maintain the existing site conditions and the sidewalk, we need to keep that retaining wall in place. So that would be again, it's actually both the front setback, and then in regard to the side setback, we would need to keep the entire wall going the whole way to 0. And so we would like our house to start at the beginning of that retaining wall. And
Can I ask you a question about the steps? Is that a separate parcel that's a city-owned parcel, or is that set of stairs on private property and the neighboring parcel?
No, so the set of stairs in that last photograph, if you want to go back to that one, that's the neighbor's stairs. But we also have a set of stairs it's a little difficult to see, I realize, sort of behind their existing house on the right side. There's a set of existing stairs there that we would like to maintain. And so those, if we divide into lots 1 and 2, lot 1 would have those stairs for the first 3 feet of the property on the side, and then we would start the house, which would make it a 17-foot wide house. And so we're not running into the structural issue there, because the stairs would remain, and then the retaining wall would basically be the front wall of the house.
Okay.
But that wall does go to 0 on the other side, on the left side, and then the neighbor's stairs begin there.
Okay. So that's sort
so
of a consistent condition to go from Lotus to Duncan with those stairs? Is that, like, a lot of parcels have that sort of same type of stairs on their properties?
I believe so. We actually did one on homes, and we found it to be also pretty common just for Upper Lawrenceville. And I'll say, actually, in the case of homes, we didn't request a variance, and we did tear the wall down, and it caused us pretty significant issues with site conditions. Just a completely separate issue, but we did end up having to rebuild the hill and the wall in that case. If we could move ahead again to the next slide. Once again, this is the geotechnical.
Mm-hmm.
I realize it's difficult to read. We could provide a PDF of this separately if it helps. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, so this shows us the second issue that we're running into, which is that the reason we'd like to have the house at 20 feet wide, which would mean 0 foot on both sides, is because the current owners have elderly parents that they're intending to move into that first floor level. And we just did a sort of a basic layout to show how all of the handicapped accessible turnarounds and door clearances would work in a space like this. And ultimately, if we were more narrow, as you can see, we really couldn't furnish this space and still have enough room for people to be able to, turn around in a wheelchair and be able to live in this space. So we tried to give you a sense without getting into too much detail of, the other issue we're running into, which is basically a wider house for, universal design or accessibility purposes. If we can move ahead to the next slide. This gives you a sense of the context. So again, we're looking at the fact that it appears to us that all of the neighbors are right at the sidewalk. And so we do believe that our front setback is really a contextual setback and not a variance request. If we could go to the next page.
Are you proposing to extend any further than the other houses on the street?
No, we want to be back further. We believe further than them, in fact. But we did not survey their properties to know where their houses are in relation to the property line. But we do believe that if you look at where our retaining wall is, which is what we want to build to, it's in line with those other houses, and in fact, back further than some of them. If we could go to the next slide. It shows our other request issue, which is that we would like the garage to be just a foot back from the property line and also be to 0 on both sides. And the reason that we're requesting this is because it is a narrow alley. And so we're looking for a way to get us the turning radius into that property. We thought a foot would be enough to get us some additional turning space. But if we go back any further, it doesn't really help us because as you can see, the neighbors' garages are also very close to the property line. So, setting back any further doesn't really help us with our turning radius to get into that garage.
But, having parking on that part of the lot would be a new condition for the street?
I'm sorry, you cut out a second there.
Sorry, parking on that portion of the property would be a new condition. So you would need to have a new curb cut. You would need to have Domi look at the curb cut for that portion of the parcel.
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah, we haven't done that yet because we wanted to go through this process first and determine whether
I was just
a valid
curious
solution, but we will apply for.
I'm correct in saying that portion of the parcel has not previously been used for parking.
That's correct. I did check the historic maps and it appears that there was a house on the property, the side that's their yard, and both of them have always faced Lotus as best as I could tell.
Okay. All right. I didn't have any other questions.
To the next. Oh, I don't.
I was going to say,
sorry.
I think we're at the end here. So unless there's something else you were adding. So Ms. Burton-Falk or Mr. Richardson, any questions for the applicant?
No additional questions.
I have no questions.
And do we have anybody else who's on the line who would like to participate in this hearing?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. All right. Well, we will take into consideration everything you've presented, and thank you for the well-prepared materials because that helps us visualize what's going on over there. And we will carry on to the next hearing. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next case of the morning is zone case 214 of 2021 for 929 Wellesley Road. The applicant is identified as Quinn Johnson. Do we have Mr. Johnson or Mr. Edelman? Or Ms. Johnson? I'm not sure. Do we have the applicant for Wellesley Road?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're here. We had a.
There we go. Oh,
Hi.
My apologies.
Sorry.
I was referring you to as Mr. I apologize.
No, it happens all the time.
Do you anticipate that others will be testifying with you this morning, or it's just the two of you?
Just the two of us.
Okay, and do each of you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do.
We do.
Thank you. Daniel, could you read in the case, please?
This is zone case 214 of 2021 for 929 Wellesley Road. The application is to construct an accessory pergola. They're requesting variances from 903.03.b.2. A 5-foot rear setback is required and 0 foot is requested, and a 5-foot setback side setback is required and 0 foot is requested.
Okay, so we have your materials. So could you tell us what you're proposing to do here?
Sure, I'm happy to, Your Honor. And this is Quinn. I will be taking the primary role as the presenter this morning.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. So thank you for hearing from us. We are Brian and Quinn Edelman, owners at 929 Wellesley Road in Highland Park, which is an irregularly shaped triangular lot. And if you could move to the next slide, we could see the site plan.
Oh, that's a weird lot. Okay.
It's really weird. Yeah, yes. We are seeking a variance for an accessory structure to be within the property's rear setback. When we bought the house, it came with the existing permitted deck and pool, as well as an unpermitted shed that sat on the deck, which you can see from the site plan is the smaller box with the cross hatching down at the right corner.
So
when
just orient us a little bit. So you're on Wellesley Road, which is at the top of the site plan? Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes. Yes,
And
the
then-
house
so-
is at the top and the yard and deck extends down into the triangle.
Okay, but just, are we going up or down in terms of grade? Because it looks like there's a grade change there.
Yes, the house is at the top on the street, and then the grade goes down as you approach the deck and the pool.
Okay, and that corner of the parcel is adjacent to the rear yards of other properties. It's not on a, it doesn't, is there a way there?
No, there's no way.
Okay.
Yeah, the property lines just, they just abut each other.
Okay, so, but down in that corner, like I said, you're abutting property lines of other parcels. I mean, the rear property lines of other parcels.
Yes, it's
Okay.
kind of like
All
a
right,
pie.
thank you.
Yeah.
And you're saying that I'm pointing to my screen, but you can't see that. The little, the smaller box in the corner was a shed that had been in that corner.
Yes, when we purchased the house, there was a shed there.
Got it. Okay.
So when, and when we realized that shed was not permitted, we sought and were granted a prior variance in 2016 for the shed to be within the rear and side setbacks of the property.
Okay.
And we had a hearing on that. No neighbors opposed that variance. And we are now seeking a similar variance for a new pergola that we actually constructed on the deck instead of the shed. The shed was quite old and it was falling into disrepair. And we have small children. We didn't know if it was safe, and we wanted to replace it with something that would be safer and was more visually appealing. And while the pergola is larger than the shed, it's a completely open air structure instead of like an enclosed house, essentially like a shed with a roof and door and windows.
Have you installed it thinking that already, or is that?
Yes, we are actually here seeking forgiveness for constructing that pergola without obtaining a variance. We were told by our contractor that we did not need a permit for an open air structure. And we believe that the prior variance that we had obtained for the shed would apply to future accessory structures, as that is what we had been told by our architect at the time of that 2016 variance. But we understand that that's not the case now, and we're very sorry. We want to make sure that we are complying with all city requirements now.
And we appreciate that. We know that it happens. We prefer it doesn't, but we understand that it does. So could you show us where the pergola is, and then
on the site plan,
the visual will be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, we can move to the next slide, but if you want to see it on the site plan, there you go.
Yeah.
So on the site plan, it's the large rectangle. On the previous slide, it's the large.
Yeah, no,
rectangle.
it was pretty clear that it was the
Right.
larger rectangle and the shed would have been off to the corner. Okay.
Yes. So here you can see a picture of the pergola.
Okay. And it appears that there's a lot of landscaping trees. I mean, they're mature trees that are surrounding that corner.
Yes, those are in the abutting property owners' yards.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to discuss, I mean, either before you constructed it or in preparation for this hearing, have you had an opportunity to discuss this with your neighbors on that corner?
We started it without discussion, but we did have some conversations along the way. We understand that the city did receive some complaints, or a complaint, I don't know, about the structure, and that led to the city inspector sending us a letter. He came to look at the site, and we understand, that's how we understand now that we need to seek a permit and the variance.
Got it. But you haven't had, I mean, did you reach out to that neighbor to understand what the nature of the concerns were, or was it just that something was being built and we didn't know whether it was permitted or not?
Yeah, that's what I understand, Your Honor. And I think, I mean, the deck was there when they purchased the property. I don't think they liked the deck. We tried to improve the look of it with some lattice and whatnot, and they have subsequently put up a fence to try to, I think, make it more private and visually appealing for them.
Okay. All right. And so it is open on the back end of the structure.
Yeah, if you go to the next photo, it might help with that. Yeah, so it's just basically, it's just some posts and an open roof sitting on top of the existing deck. And then this little part on the side is just like, it's supposed to be like a changing room for the pool and just a place to store the kids' pool toys and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the sides of the pergola are just the railings that comprise the deck.
Okay. All right. I didn't have any other questions. Ms. Burton-Falk or Mr. Richardson, any questions?
No additional.
It looks like there are two additional
I
slides.
don't have any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, the two additional slides that's the zoning approval from when we went through this in 2016.
Got it. For the shed.
Yeah, the other slide is the inspector, kind of what started this process was, if we needed a building permit. So we went and hired a structural engineering firm to come in and do some drawings of the pergola. And, depending on the outcome of the zoning hearing, we're going to make these additional changes to bring up the compliance with the structural engineer suggested.
Okay. All right. Caroline, are there others who would like to participate in this hearing, raising their hand?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for explaining what's going on over there. And we will take your exhibits, which are very helpful for us to understand what's going on, and we'll issue our decision.
Great. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Again,
Thank
we're
you.
really sorry that we moved forward without this. So
You're not the first. So. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. The next case of the morning is zone case 212 of 2021 for 319 Winesap Drive. The applicant is identified as Diane Rudolph. We have Ms. Rudolph. All right. Diane, could you unmute yourself so we can know who you are? Diane?
I'm trying.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I'm assuming you're Diane Rudolph, who's the applicant here.
Yes, ma'am. It's Diane
And
Randolph.
is there anybody else who is to be testifying with you this morning?
Our attorney, Alexander, he should be on as well.
Do we have an attorney? Alexander Saxon, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do we have Mr. Saxon? Could you unmute yourself, please? Thank you. And we ask both applicants and attorneys to swear in, because inevitably you both offer some factual input. So do each of you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And who's going to be who's going to be presenting primarily? Ms.
Alex.
Rudolph or Mr. Saxon?
Mr. Saxon.
Okay, thank you. And Daniel, could you read in the case, please?
This is zone case 212 of 2021 for 319 Winesap Drive. The application is for a 6-foot high chain link fence around the perimeter of a multi-unit development. They're requesting a variance from 925.06.A.2, 4-foot high maximum fence height permitted in front and exterior side yard.
All right.
All right, so this is a fence that existed prior to Waterford acquiring the property. If you go to the next slide, you can see parts of it, obviously where it is. It essentially blocks the existing neighborhood on Carlton Street from the development, and perhaps most importantly to the neighbors of our development, it blocks vehicular access, which was primarily why it was retained once we acquired the property. It really serves no major purpose for us, but it does grant some level of comfort, to the neighbors when we made the development that motor vehicle access would not increase substantially. If you want to move to the next slide.
I was going to say, could you show us a site plan, just because I'm having a hard time understanding what's the front and where is the fence? So thank you.
No problem. So yeah, that's the fence that existed, as I said, before we acquired the property. The property was previously owned, and I apologize, I don't know the exact sort of business setup, but the Catholic Church owned it, and it divided this neighborhood of Carlton Street, and I'm sorry, I always forget the other one, Dawson Street, from what has now become the development. As you can see, it also, so if you look at the two sort of top points, it prohibits anybody in the development from using Carlton or Dawson from accessing 46th Street or even further down onto Butler.
I'm just curious, where is Winesap? Because the property address we have is 319 Winesap Drive.
So I might not have included that in the thing. If you go to I'm trying to look at the one on my screen. It's essentially north. This is the site plan before development. So Winesap is now runs directly north of the fence line. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
Where the red line is beneath the word chain link fence, that's pretty much the street.
Okay, thank you, because the issue is not the fence in its entirety, it's the portion of the fence that's in the front and exterior side. So that's why I'm just trying to understand what part
Yeah.
of the fence is in a front yard or an exterior side yard.
Right.
And then
Okay,
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, I think that'll show, this is the portion of the fence. The other side of that is wine sap.
okay,
That's Winesap Street you can see going down the
Right.
hill.
great, okay, thank you,
The fence borders the property.
right. Yeah, that's, like I said, I'm just trying to orient a little bit. And this shows the fence with the black wrap. Is that a feature that you're intending to keep in place, or was that for construction?
No, we intend to keep that in place. It just gives the people in the existing homes privacy.
Okay.
Okay, if you can go to the next slide. So this might be, that's the one I was looking for. I'm sorry. This is what, now you can see Winesap Drive.
There we go. Okay,
Yep.
that's helpful.
And it was, you look at that note on the left, leaving this fence in place as we went through the process of getting the permits to construct the development. There were some concerns raised by the neighbors whose homes you see there. And we agreed to leave the fence in place as a condition of being permitted to build, for the exact reasons I mentioned earlier, including blocking vehicular access.
Got
So
it.
if you go to the next slide, these are just kind of more different views of it. There is, as you can see, one small, in the bottom right picture, there's one area where you can, pedestrians can traverse back and forth. I believe that we had a gate up there at one point, and I don't know, Diane, if you have anything to add on that, but
Someone on Carlton Street kept taking that section of fence down because I think there were kids in the plan and as well along the street that played together.
Good fences. All right.
yep, good fences, good neighbors. Next slide. This is just more, as you can see, the fence. These are actually
Just the same opposite view of the same picture.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I got that.
next slide. We might have had some overkill here.
Was that previously sort of a cul-de-sac at the end of Carlton? Is it?
No, it was just a vacant lot. A long, long time ago, there was a hospital on the property, and that was the laundry facility for the hospital.
But there was never a through street. It was not a cross street.
No,
Right.
no, it was not.
Yeah, it was a dead end. Yep.
It just dead ended to a vacant lot.
Yep.
Davidson, Carlson, and Bancroft all dead ended into the lot.
That's right. It wasn't a cul-de-sac, but it was a dead end. Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you for, I mean, the photos really are helpful.
Okay.
And I understand that this is, the fence is something that is subject to more of a neighborhood agreement, that there's a preference to have the fence as opposed to not having the fence.
That's
Right.
correct.
And the 6-foot height is requested because it is, those additional 2 feet are helping with the access issues.
That and the fact that it was the fence that we inherited when we acquired.
And
the property.
it isn't truly a front yard. I mean, it is in terms of the street addressing and everything else, but it's not like you're blocking a front yard.
You are correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there a couple of other slides here that we should be looking at?
I believe there's just other pictures or explanation of what we've talked about.
Okay. That's helpful. And thank you for summarizing that for us. I didn't have any other questions. Ms. Burton Falk or Mr. Richardson, any questions?
No additional questions, Madam Chair, for me.
No questions.
All right. Caroline, are there others who would like to participate in this hearing?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right. Then we will close the hearing for today and we will issue a decision accordingly.
Thank you all.
All
Thank
right.
you very
Thank you
much.
all very much. The next case of the day is zone case 229 of 2021 for 1630 Penn Avenue. The applicant is identified as David Harris. But I see Mr. Siddick. Mr. Siddick, could you unmute yourself? There we go. Hello, Mr. Siddick. How are you?
Morning. Good to see you.
I'm assuming that you're here on behalf of the applicant,
That's correct.
and are you making a request for a continuance of this matter?
That's correct. We, Madam Chair, would need some additional time to work with the Strip District neighbors and Councilwoman Gross's office. So we're still engaging in some community work. So we would prefer, if it's available, to have 4 weeks. I note on my calendar, that's Veterans Day. I don't know if that's a problem or it's available.
Well, we can check availability. Have you communicated that you were going to request a continuance with the community group and others who might be interested in this hearing?
So the only one that I know, I connected directly with Councilwoman Gross, and I understand my client has directly contacted the Strip District neighbors, but I don't have that personal knowledge.
Okay.
I'm told.
But it's a matter of getting notice out for a hearing, and I don't know that we can confirm a November 11th date without checking that. That's an agenda that would have to be finalized next week because of the 3-week notice issue. So if November 11th is available, we'll do our best to put you on that agenda. But if it's not, we might have to kick you to the next week. But
Okay.
can you coordinate with the planning department to determine that date? And then we'll have to get the communication out to, we're actually posting again. So
Yes.
we could actually post the property with the new date.
Yeah, happy to do that. Actually, that's comforting. It's being done again because there's always on the applicant side, the concern of people not having effective notice. So
It's been a concern for the past 18 months. Yes.
We-
And Caroline, is there anybody else who's raising a hand who has an interest or would like to participate in this hearing?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Siddick, we are relying on you to coordinate with the office and determine the actual date and then get notice to those you've been working with as to the revised date.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been in touch with Lana about the postponement, but haven't discussed a date.
Okay.
But we'll do so.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And
All right.
for anybody who is listening, we're continuing case 229 to 2021 to possibly November 11th and maybe another date, but we will go from there.
Thanks, everyone.
All
See
right.
you.
Thank you. All right. The next case of the morning is zone case 220 of 2021 for 108 43rd and a half Street. The applicant is identified as Alan Dunn. Do we have Mr. Dunn with us? We do. Mr. Dunn, could you unmute yourself and let us know if there are others who are going to be testifying with you this morning?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I believe there are parties representing the owner in attendance.
Okay. Could you give us names so that we could look for them in our waiting room?
Yes, Robbie Oppenheim, Brighton Cook.
Okay, and right now we're just identifying applicant side. So, Mr. Dunn, you're the only one who's appearing to, we have a Frank Matizzi and Gerald Sigarnowitz. Are you, are
It could be
either of you
neighbors.
here on behalf of the applicant? Okay.
Can you hear
So-
me, ma'am?
Mr. Matizzi, yes.
Yes, I'm here to testify against the variance.
Well, that's, I'm trying to identify who's here on behalf of the applicant, and then we will get to anybody who has objections or concerns after the applicant has an opportunity to present their case.
Okay.
Thank you, but we know you're there. But Mr. Dunn, you appear to be the only one who's shown up, so others might join you, but are you prepared to present, or would you like to regroup?
I'm prepared to present.
Okay, so do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board this morning will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. So Daniel, could you read the case in, please?
This is zone case 220 of 2021 for 108 43rd and a half Street. The application's for the new construction of a 3-story single-family dwelling. They're requesting a variance from 903.03.e.2. A 5-foot front setback is required and 6 inches is requested. 15-foot rear setback is required and 14-foot 10 inches is requested. And a 5-foot side setback is required and 0 foot is requested. And a variance from 912.04.c. A 5-foot side setback is required and 0 foot is requested for an accessory roof deck.
Okay. Mr. Dunn, we have your materials. Could you walk us through what's being proposed?
Yes, I'd be glad to. This is the site plan depicting the property location in Lower Lawrenceville. The heavy line outlines the proposed dwelling.
What are the cross streets in Lower Lawrenceville? What are we between?
43rd and a half. This is probably the last block getting down to the railroad tracks.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the nearest side street is, but the back of this property is 43rd.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
So yeah, so you can see the homes on the street pretty much are right up on the property line. There are no sidewalks. Presently, this property doesn't even have a curb, and I don't. Many of the homes just butt right up to the street itself. There are really no curbs, sidewalks of any sort, and we're looking to incorporate a garage into this dwelling and preserve some rear property for yard. And the one, as we look at the plot plan, the upper side yard is dedicated kind of as an access point to the backyard and to the entrance to the unit itself. And the lower side yard is within, I believe, 6 inches of the property line. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I understand the front and the rear setback. On our agenda, it says you have 14 feet, 10 inches. So you're just 2 inches off the 15-foot rear setback. But tell me about the side yard setback. Are you requesting 0 foot on each side so that it could extend for the full parcel?
No, no, we're only, we're asking for 6 inches on the one side. And at the minimum, 3 feet on the upper side.
Okay. But with respect to the 6 inches, can you explain the basis for the variance request on that side?
Versus 0 property line clearance, or why 6 inches in general?
Well, you're requesting a variance from the setback requirement. So what's the hardship that would necessitate the variance, and why is 6 inches the minimum that would afford relief? And what's on the other side of that? I mean, what is the shared property line, and what's on the other side of it?
There's a fence along there with the neighboring property's side yard. The constraint is the fact that we wanted to incorporate a garage into this unit. Parking on 43rd and a half is very challenging. It's very difficult to navigate, particularly if there are people, trucks, construction people working, and because of the narrowness of the way, the garage necessitated a wide enough door to generate the width of the house, and still providing some means of accessing it from the side.
And do we have any photographs, or what is on that side of the property from which you're seeking that variance?
Yeah, there should be a collection of photos available for view, including an aerial that we had done with drone.
Is there anything is this a vacant parcel, or is this a proposed?
It is vacant, yes.
Okay.
If we can scroll through the images, you can see the full depth. That's viewing it from the 43rd and a half, looking back. This is looking northerly on 43rd and a half, or southerly, I'm sorry. That's the property currently kind of overgrown now.
Well, is it the
and it's vacant all the way to 43rd.
But is it the brown structure on the right from which you're seeking a 6-inch setback?
Correct. Their property line, if you look a little farther back, you can see a wooden fence. The wooden fence is pretty much the property line. So we would be 6 inches from that wooden fence that you see set back on the right. If there's an aerial view too, if we could maybe scroll a little further forward.
Mr. Dutt, did you email me that aerial photo? I might have to get it for my talks. Give me 1 second.
It might have been a separate attachment from the PDFs.
Can you provide a little orienting on this parcel? What the chain link fence there, that's the side where you're proposing to meet the 3-foot setback?
That is correct.
Okay.
We are looking toward 43rd and 1/2 at this point.
Got it. And
so we would
do you have any information about the historic use of this parcel? I mean, obviously it's vacant now, but had there been a structure that extended to the property lines on the site?
Yeah,
previously?
I believe one time there was. I believe there was at one time a house on this parcel. I do not have those dated photographs, however.
Okay. All right. And I mean, if there isn't, oh, there we go. Okay, and again, can you orient us, you're proposing to have the structure extend to the front property line on 43rd and a half, but the setback you're requesting is from the structure on the right-hand side with the dormers.
That's correct. We are
Okay.
looking facing 43rd and a half, and the vacant lot extends all the way to 43rd.
Okay, and the large structure, is that a warehouse, or what is this, the larger structure on the far right?
I believe that's maybe one of CMU's research buildings. I'm not totally sure.
And the other question, there's also a variance being requested for an accessory roof deck. And that because accessory structures don't get the benefit of an contextual consideration, is the proposal that the deck extend the entire width of the structure?
It is the entire width, but not the entire depth. It's maybe just the back third of the footprint of the building.
Okay, but not the front part, the rear.
No, correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions about what's being requested. Ms. Burton-Falk or Mr. Richardson?
No additional questions.
Okay.
No questions.
All right, and then we will turn to those who'd like to participate. Mr. Mattizi spoke first, so Mr. Mattizi, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me now?
You can, and do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. Can you explain what your position and concern is with respect to this application?
Okay, I sent in a letter to the board last night. I don't know if you received it in reference to my objection to the variances.
And we will make your letter part of the record as well, but could you just explain briefly what your interest is and what your concern is?
Okay, well, my house is at 95 43rd Street. As you're looking at this photograph of the vacant lot, I am the property on the right. That's one half of a duplex there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to read mine first if I could, or do you just want me to summarize?
We will read it. So we actually would prefer you just summarize what it is that you're concerned about.
Okay. Before they build anything on this property between 43rd and a half and 43rd Street, there needs to be some drainage, gradings, and elevation changes to that property. And I cited on my letter, Uniform Construction Code 1003.18 for drainage.
So here's the thing, the zoning board doesn't have jurisdiction over building code issues, which would be the UCC. And I appreciate what your concerns are. But the requests here are for setback variances. Do you, in your letter and just reviewing what has been presented here, do you have concerns with the specific setback variances that have been requested?
Well, my neighbor just called me Gerald Signowski.
And we're going to let him testify. He's also appearing on so we'll let him speak for himself, but your concerns are about the actual mechanics of construction on the parcel, but do you have concerns about the variances themselves?
Not the specific variances as listed, but like I said, my issues on stormwater runoff situation. But I do have a question for the architect On the exterior elevation drawings, A1.1 and so on, I don't see a elevation level at which the house is going to be built on this slab. I would assume that it would be at the level of 43rd and a half street level. And if you look at the site plan, see like Charlie 1.1, it shows a mark of 736. Is that the level that the house is going to be situated on the elevation of that property?
No, that's the elevation of the existing contour. It does not represent the elevation of the house itself.
I see. Well, my issues with, like I said, the stormwater runoff, the drainage, and the grading. And
Again, we appreciate that there are multiple concerns that can affect a single property, but from the zoning board's perspective, we just don't have jurisdiction over building code issues or stormwater issues. So that if the board were to approve what's being proposed, that's an issue that would have to be worked out in building permits. But we're considering right now the request for variances as presented. So
okay.
Thank you. And we, like I said, we will make your letter part of the record as well. And Mr. Dunn, I'm assuming we'll take note that you have made concerns, which he will relay back to the property owner. So we do have Mr. Signorowitz, who would also like to testify. Can we let him in?
Yes.
There we go. Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Gerald M. Signorowitz.
All right. And do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Could you explain what your concerns or questions are here?
On the photograph, my home is just to the left of the vacant lot on 43rd Street.
43rd. Okay. At the rear of this parcel facing 43rd. So on this photograph, the upper part to the left.
Yes.
Okay.
While the proposal being put forth calls it a 3 feet distance from my property, that applies only to the first floor. There's a 2-foot overhang towards my property line on the second, third, and fourth floors, which bring it to only 1 foot from my property. And along the very top of that wall, there runs a gutter, the length of the wall facing my property, which would bring the edge of that gutter out to 8 inches from my property. And I'm afraid that with a heavy rain, with a roof sloping towards my property and a gutter up there that close, my backyard is going to be constantly flooded after heavy rains. I'd like to see the plan change to perhaps drain the roof towards 43rd and a half Street, or perhaps drain it towards the property proposal owner's backyard where he could collect it in rain barrels in his yard. I just hate to see that water go into my yard. I'd like to see it go anywhere else but my yard.
And Mr. Dunn, is that accurate that there's sort of a cantilevered portion that the setback is on the first floor and that the upper floors are actually closer than the 3 feet?
That is true, Madam Chair. I believe the zoning allows for a 2-foot architectural feature overhang.
I appreciate that. Can you address the specific concern that was raised with respect to the gutter and the overhang?
Well, I don't know that it's any different than any other roof drainage condition that we would encounter with any other form of construction. I mean, roof gutters, downspouts are designed to contain a certain volume of water per the area of the roof within certain storm cycle levels, I could certainly try to incorporate maybe an oversized gutter and downspout to allay the neighbor's concern. Not being aware that that would be an issue, of course, but I have not ever run into a situation other than maybe a once every 200-year type hurricane or rainfall
Times they are
situation.
changing, Mr. Dunn. Times they're changing.
Yeah, I
So,
get it, and that's a
But-
valid consideration.
and I would say I appreciate the concerns of both neighbors on that side of the property, and it does sound like there's some drainage issues generally in the area, which obviously you don't want to exacerbate with a proposed, with new construction. So I would, again, the board has to issue a decision with respect to what's being proposed, but I would hope that the architect take back to the property owner the concerns that are raised here today. I think we had one more person who wanted to participate in this hearing. Ms. Frost?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. And can you explain what your concern is with respect to this application?
Yes, so I own the house that is the brown one that you had questioned earlier. It's in the bottom right of the property. So the house would be right next to me on 104 43rd and a half Street. So in reference to your question earlier, when I bought my house, there was another house, another structure that was right next to mine. It started exactly at the road. It was not set back at all. And it ended exactly where my house ended. And there was no extension of that. So my questions and concerns are, I think I'm understanding this correctly. They are giving 3 feet between my house and their house, but they want to extend closer to my fence, and they would like to extend, is it 14 feet past my house? Is that correct?
As I understood it, they're requesting a 14-foot, 10-inch setback at the rear of the parcel, which would be away from your house, and that the request is for a 6-inch setback next to your house. So
Yeah.
from the property line, they're requesting to be closer to your house. That's why I was curious about a previous structure on that parcel. Did it extend all the way to the property line, or did it, how close to your house was it?
So the structure beforehand was 3 feet. It stayed 3 feet from my house and only extended to the very back wall of my house. So where my patio starts, there was nothing there. So my concern is I clearly don't want a huge wall on my small patio that's 6 inches from my fence, and I will get absolutely no light and be completely closed in. I know that the previous people that were going to build on that property had come by and asked in person for my permission to build even 7 feet past my house. I told them no to 14 feet. I mean, I bought this house with the patio and my outdoor space being as it is, and I would really prefer not like a house being built not to extend 14 feet. That's basically the whole length of my entire patio. So that worries me. Also, I would prefer if it stayed 3 feet. I would maybe consider them building 7 feet past, but 14 feet, I do not want that.
All right. I think I appreciate what your concern is. Mr. Dunn, did you want to address that question?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the rear setback, we are within inches of what is permitted. I think if you look contextually in the neighborhood, what we're proposing is pretty much common throughout. Most of the party who just spoke's home is a zero clearance setback row house type dwelling that is also apparent at the two rear parcels on 43rd. So I believe we're keeping contextually compatible with the fabric of the neighborhood with what we're proposing.
Well, I will say, when I bought my home, I didn't buy any other house in the neighborhood. I bought my house because, the outdoor space was also important to me. And the home next to me, like I said, was the same width as mine. Now, in reference to wanting a setback and building a garage, as you can see on this photo here, after my house, there is that big, it's called the Chocolate Factory. So it's a big warehouse and offices. So right at that, and then to the end of 43rd and a half Street, there is no parking allowed. So for all of us 10 houses here, our only parking on our street is right where you see it and only on my side of the street. So I'm not sure what is allowed, but if you set that back so that you can put a garage there, it kind of takes away from all of that from us too. But I would prefer with the setbacks and stuff, I don't want you to go past what is allowed. I would like you to stay at what is allowed.
And thank you. I think we appreciate everybody's position with respect to what's being proposed here, and the board will consider both your testimony and the exhibits that have been submitted, including letters in objection. But we're going to, seeing no other hands raised, we're going to close this hearing. Thank you all for participating. And we are, like I said, we're listening to the concerns that are raised. So thank you all very much, but we are going to close the hearing. And we will issue our decision within the time permitted under the zoning code. So thank you all. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the next case of the morning, which is zone case 221 of 2021 for 214 North Craig Street. The applicant is identified as Anthony Soso. We have Mr. Soso. Could you unmute yourself, and could you let us know whether anybody else is to participate in this hearing with you? You need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I also have on the line the owner of the proposed shop, Mr. Amir Ahmad, who can answer questions that you may have that I can't answer.
Okay, but I'd like to get you both sworn in if you're going to testify.
Okay.
So can we let Mr. Ahmad in, please? Okay, for those who are going to be testifying, Mr. Soso and Mr. Ahmed, do each of you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, so Daniel, could you read in the case, please?
This is case 221 of 2021 for 214 North Craig Street. The application is in an existing two-story structure, use of 1,500 square feet on first floor as retail sales and services limited for a vape shop. They're requesting a special exception from 921.02.A.4 for the change of a non-conforming use.
Okay, and can we bring up the materials for this case? As lovely as 43rd Street is. Thank you. Okay, there we go. And we will read the summary of the background, but I'd really just like to move to where the property is and how it has previously been used and what's being proposed.
Sure. Daniel, if you have the pictures, okay, there they are.
There we go.
Okay, so this is 214 North Craig Street, near Bayard, in between Bayard and Center. Very busy part of Oakland. You can see that the property, it's a 2-story in the back, but it's 1 story in the front as it fronts North Craig Street. That's it houses a pizza shop on the left, and on the right is the beauty salon that this is going to replace or would replace. So it is a multi-unit residential district. You can see next door is that high-rise apartment building that's directly next to it, and also on the first floor of that building is a bakery and a restaurant. There's been a restaurant there for a long time, since I was a kid. Daniel, can we?
Yeah, I'm appreciating that the existing space is a non-conforming retail use in a high-density residential district. But when we are considering a change in a proposed non-conforming use, we're looking at whether the new use would be generally consistent with the impacts of the prior use. So if it had been a beauty salon use, it was, hours of operation, number of employees, whether parking was available, how often customers were in and out, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So if you could
give
us that kind of sense.
Sure, I detail that in my summary, the written summary.
Okay, great.
But
Thank
I can, it's on page 2 of my summary. I go right through the all of those things that are in the ordinance. So
Great.
the hours of operation, the salon was open, during regular business hours. I don't know exactly what it was, but I assume a normal beauty salon is 9 to 9 or 10 to 9. This will be open probably 10 to 10, and it will be open on Sundays, which the salon probably was not. But Sundays in this area are the lightest days of the week for this, in terms of traffic. Parking spaces, there is no parking. There is one parking space, I think, behind the building that the salon didn't use and my client doesn't intend to use. There is a underground public parking lot directly across the street that is available for the public, and then it's the same on-street parking that the salon had. Number of employees, there were 4 chairs in that salon. So there were 3 to 4 employees at any one time. My client will have 1 employee during the working hours. At the most, during busy times, they may have 2. So there will be less employees. Physical size of the building relative to surrounding buildings, I have the photos to show that. The other buildings in the neighborhood dwarf this property. Design characteristics, my client is not proposing to alter the design characteristics. They do propose a sign, which they will go through proper channels to get with the city. They are not going to be putting any photos in the windows or other advertising. It will be a very clean shop. My client owns several other vape shops in other cities, and we do have a photo of one of them. I think it's the last photo. Daniel, if you could show. Yeah, there we go. So he has that's an interior or an exterior and an interior photo. Very clean shop. This is all tobacco products. There's no CBD or cannabis. There's no lounging. So customers come in, they buy something, they leave. They're not sticking around like they would in a salon. There's no smoking on premises. They just come in, buy their goods and leave.
Just in terms of the signage, had there been, do you know, because signage indicating a non-conforming use can get to be challenging because the signage is, the signage for residential district is not what it would be, what would be permitted for a commercial use. So is there any indication of what type of signage the salon had?
The salon had a awning. You can see in the very first photo, it's still there. I don't know if you can zoom in on that at all, but there's a, it's like a red and a white awning with the name of the salon on front. But you see the pizza shop's sign. And then, so.
The pizza shop has an awning sign as well.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, again, it's the signage that might be permitted in a commercial district is not necessarily permitted in the residential district. So recognizing that that's going to be a separate application process.
Yeah, my client has contracted with a sign company that is familiar with the city ordinances and is going to go through the permitting process. I just wanted to mention about traffic generation because I know that's in the ordinance as well. In my client's experience in his other stores, he would have maybe 3 to 5 customers per hour, whereas the salon may have had 4 to 8 clients with their 4 chairs. So they will actually have less customers. My client's products are high margin products that cost a little bit more. So, you know, it's not like a grocery store. He's not selling anything other than these products. So, you know, there's no lottery in there. There's no people coming in and getting bottles of water. He may have 3 to 5 people in there in an hour. His supplies would come once or twice a month. He keeps it well stocked, and it would be in a standard size delivery truck, like a UPS truck or something. He's not getting tractor trailer loads and tying up traffic with deliveries.
Then there's no loading area. I mean, presumably the pizza shop has some form of deliveries as well, but there's no loading area on the parcel?
No.
Okay. And the driveway that's indicated in that picture, that's not part of the subject property, it's part of another parcel? Or is that an alley?
That is a concrete driveway that is part of the parcel. I know, Daniel, did you get the survey that I sent later in the day yesterday?
I'll look for it now. I'll bring it up.
We'll take a look. I was just curious if there was a place to.
Yeah, I think they may pull in there.
The
pizza shop may, that may be where they get deliveries. Amir, do you have any knowledge about that?
No.
Okay. Well, it's just a question. I mean, obviously the type of delivery for the pizza shop are going to be different than what you're proposing. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
So,
there it is.
It is part of it, and so that also is access for the apartments back there. That's all student housing above it.
Okay. All right. I didn't have any other questions. Mr. Richardson or Ms. Burton-Falk?
No questions.
No questions, Madam Chair. I am noticing there is something in the question and answer box. I don't know if there are any hands raised.
Okay, well, we'll turn to questions next. I wanted to check with you all first. All right, so we do have hands raised in the for our panelists, for our attendees. The first is a Kathy Gallagher. Ms. Gallagher, do you want to indicate your interest in, well, first of all, do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And can you explain what your interest is with respect to the application?
My name is Kathy Gallagher. I live at 234 North Dithridge Street, where my family has resided since 1914. The property in question is visible from the rear of my home. So kitchen, dining room, bedrooms all look out on this property. In the past, we've had a view of Little Nippers Pizza, Gregory's Hair Salon, Baskin and Robbins, my personal favorite. Indivina's Family Restaurant was there for many, many years. All of these businesses were neighborhood-friendly businesses who catered to the residents of the neighborhood. A vape shop does not cater to the residents of the neighborhood. We also feel that it would be detrimental to our neighborhood because we have a very large high school population that walks on that street. We also have a very large student population from the universities. So I am opposed to a vape shop on that particular parcel. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you very much for participating, and we understand where you are located with respect to it, so we will accept your testimony as part of the record. But I'm going to move on to it's Mary Claire Kasunik. And I'm going to ask you the same. Do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Thanks for letting me. Like Ms. Gallagher, I run Oakland Catholic High School, which is located at 144 North Craig Street, so 1 block away, just across Bayard. And to reiterate what she said, we have no issue. We live in a mixed residential area, and we are part of the community and neighbors. We have no issue with non-conforming, retail going into a residential or school or neighborhood. But previous tenants or previous businesses were more conducive to the neighborhood well-being. And a vape shop or a tobacco where we have minors, and I head a school with 500 young women, and only 2 blocks from us is Central Catholic High School, our brother's school, 9th through 12th grade, with 750 young men. They are traversing these streets all the time. The improvements along Craig Street have been great for them over the decades I've been there for 30 years, but a tobacco shop just doesn't match up. So I would like it noted that it doesn't seem to fit with what the Oakland neighborhood is trying to build as far as a community.
And again, thank you for expressing your concern with respect to what's being proposed and your perspective of the context of the neighborhoods. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And the last hand raised is Kevin Sheridan. Mr. Sheridan, could you identify yourself for the record? And do you swear or affirm that the information you will provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to second everything that you just heard a moment ago. At Central Catholic, very much the same feeling.
Could you identify who you are for the record,
I'm the
please?
assistant principal of faculty and curriculum at Central Catholic High School.
Thank you.
And we just find it, wholly inappropriate to be so close to both schools, to Oakland, even closer than to Central Catholic. But our students should be able to walk the neighborhood without being in such close proximity to a vape shop such as that. I know, everyone in Catholic education around the country is kind of fighting this battle, and it's been highly documented. How minors are using, vapes and those types of things to make it even more accessible to them. I think is just wholly inappropriate, and it goes against, it makes our mission even more difficult to try to guide our young men and young women in the right direction. So we object to this zoning measure.
And we thank you all for participating. It's important for us to understand the concerns of the neighborhood. I am going to let the applicant respond generally to the comments that were made, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you. Amir, do you want to present how you run your other shops when it comes to those under 18?
Hello, how you doing? Yes, I would like to discuss that. I want to say thank you for everyone from the community that came out here and gave us their point of view. I would like to also say that the way we run our businesses, we have a system in place that checks IDs and reads IDs and won't sell to anyone under the age of 21. We stay with the law and we follow with the law. We also have over 3 locations throughout the United States. Right now, we have some in Buffalo, we have one in Nashville, and then this one in Erie, PA that we're trying to open. We understand everybody's worries with, selling to minors, and that's not something we intend to do. We have a system in place and we have a good reputation, and we'd love to keep that good reputation, We also want to note that there is a gas station on the same street that do sell tobacco product, that do sell vapes, and that do sell wraps and liquor and beer and anything like that. That is also next to the Catholic building and next to us. So I understand where everybody's coming from with the underage use, but that's not something we intend to do. We could also sign a petition with the community that even if we get caught one time selling to underage, we could close the business down. That's not something.
And to that question, what department of the state infrastructure regulates what you do, and would be who could challenge you for selling to under 21?
So most of the time it would be like a health department where they would send minors. They send them regularly to our shops. And so to test our workers, to test our employees, to see if we're staying up with the law, if we sell to minors or not. And so what they would do is they would sell someone under the age of 21 to the store, and they would come try to buy something. And the test is to see if you would sell them without IDing them in the proper way of selling to them. So if you don't sell them, you normally get a fine. And if it happens more than 2 times, they take away your license, 2 to 3 times, and then you get your license taken away. Like I said, most of the time, we always have workers that's over the age of 21. We know the law, we follow the law. We have no intentions of selling to under the age of 21 because we have kids ourselves. I have a son that's under the age of 21, and I wouldn't want him buying any vapes. But we also do the mainstream concern with, we want to switch a lot of people that smoke cigarettes, tobacco over to the vape side. We want to show them, there is good in vaping, and it's a little healthier option than, cigarettes. They have a lot of kids as Juul. They have CBD that will also be selling. We also have Kratom, a lot of other stuff that's good.
All right, then, thank you for that additional input. And unless Ms. Burton-Falk or Mr. Richardson, you have additional questions, everybody's given us a bit to think about in terms of the application that's been presented, and we will issue our decision within the 45 days as permitted under the zoning code.
Can I also add one more thing?
Just quickly, please.
Okay, there is also, just wanted to also note, we're not the first vape shop in the community, and there's also one between next to Pittsburgh. It's called Forbes Tobacco. They open till 2 a.m. They're the 3801 Forbes Avenue. They open from 8:20 a.m. till 2 a.m. So we're not the first, we won't be the last, But what we intend to do is,
we're considering this specific property, so we're going to take that into consideration. But
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you all for participating. We appreciate everybody's input, and we are going to.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the last case of the day, which is zone case 239 of 2021 for 174 42nd Street. The applicant is identified as Andrew Kellerman.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, how are you? We've got 2 of you there. So do each of you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
Thank you very much. And Daniel, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 239 of 2020 for 174 42nd Street. The application is to install a one-car parking pad at the side of a single-unit residence. Requesting a variance from 903.03.e.2. Minimum 5-foot interior side setback is required and 0 foot is requested.
All right, so we're putting up your materials.
Awesome, thank you.
Could as you speak, could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Rachel Lipko, and this is Andrew Kellerman, and we are the property owners of 174 42nd Street.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you see on this map here, our house is in central Lawrenceville, and it's located between Butler Street and Foster Street. We purchased the property in 2018, and we are the primary residents.
All right.
Next slide, please. So we just wanted to give some quick context here. So we're asking for a 5-foot variance on the 5-foot setback to be taken to 0 feet. But we wanted to talk about the fact that we don't own to the back of Banner Way. There is a house behind us. You can see the rear property line. So if we were to do any type of parking pad, it would have to happen off of 42nd Street.
Well, and I think we get that. So I guess the question is, is it the area at the left of the house as depicted on the
Next slide,
drawing?
please. Yeah. If we hop to the next slide, we'll show the front of our house.
There we go.
Yeah.
And you have sufficient area on that side to pull in. So we're not talking about a front yard setback. It's the side that's the question.
Yep, we have the length of the house has it's 38 feet without the 5 feet, so plenty of room.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's clearly been concrete for a substantial period of time.
Yes.
Has it previously been used for parking, whether authorized or not? And is there a curb cut for the parking area currently in existence, or is that something that you would have to seek approval for?
Yeah, so we would have to seek approval for it, but we did previously apply via One Stop and it's under review. There's also a couple other things that we need to address to actually make this happen.
Okay. And then go ahead.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why we are looking for a parking pad is safety concerns. I'm a school teacher and I have to walk to my car very early each morning while it's still dark out. And on the few occasions that I've had to park outside of our street on maybe like Banner Alley or a couple streets down, I've been followed in my car.
So that's been sort of a concern. And then the other two concerns that have been happening with this is, like we said, it's always been cement. It's a pretty unattractive appearance for the neighborhood. Where you see that wooden gate at the back of the property, water pools very heavily during even normal rains, which floods into our basement. So there's a drainage issue. And to be honest, it's really unattractive for the neighborhood. It's just ugly.
So you're not proposing to make use of the existing cement, you're proposing to improve it in some way?
Exactly, yes. So next slide, please.
Almost as if we're anticipating.
So just a couple of logistical things. That is not a utility pole. It's an old signpost, which there's no historical sign attached. And so obviously we would need to remove that. That's a disconnected water line. So it's an empty pit from years ago, you know, when water lines would run through people's properties in Lawrenceville. So we did look into that. And then the stairs would need to be relocated to the front of the property, which is a current DOMI encroachment permit, which meets ADA compliance, and that's currently under review.
Got it.
Next slide.
So how is the property previously used? I mean, the glass block window is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the portion of the structure at the rear extends to the property line. Is that correct?
Yes. So that that property, like to the left of the wooden gate, goes up to the edge of our property. The house was built in 1864. That portion where the wooden gate was built in 1890, where they were building two property lines. So correct, there is a tiny backyard even in back of that, but our edge of the house does go to the property line back there.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Oh, well, it used to be a VFW. That's why there's glass back windows.
Yeah, for many years.
Yes.
And
Explains the signpost as well.
So we had an artist friend draw what this could look like. Just a couple of things. This would be an eco-friendly green parking pad, which would improve drainage because it would be made of permeable recycled pavers, which would allow for a significant increase in green space. It alleviates our safety concerns by allowing compact cars to park along the house. It removes the ugly cement. And actually, this would allow for the restoration of the front back to kind of a historic look with traditional railings, which would help beautify the neighborhood. And down the road, this would allow for the possibility of a charging station for us to potentially purchase an electric vehicle,
yes,
which would also help the neighborhood.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Very quickly, you can look this over later, but it's just a high level site survey and architectural plans. But if we go to the next slide, please, which is a close up, we just wanted to talk about dimensions real quick because it's not lost on us that we're not pulling Jeeps or Subarus into this space. This is for the cars that we own, which are compact cars. So the parking pad would be installed within the boundary lines of our property. Just to give you an example, a Kia is 5 feet 4 inches wide and 11 foot 4 inches long. And a compact parking space within the city is 7.75 inches, I believe. So the length of space after the 5 foot front setback, which we would keep, is 33 feet. So 2 compact cars would be able to stack with space to spare.
Okay. So you have it very neatly put in. I'm curious about the any discussions that you may have had with the owner of the property. Is it 176 42nd Street?
Yeah. Let me circle back to that just to jump to the next slide, please.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Feel free to go over these obviously later, but these are hardships that are listed.
We will, anything that's written, we tend to look at later. So,
but if we want to jump to slide 12, just to talk about the question. So our neighbor at 176, that property is currently vacant with no tenants living there. And no, it's not used as a primary residence. They have 2 feet, almost 10 inches, which is the width of the gate that is on their property line at the very back, not the wooden gate, but the metal gate.
Is that the side or the, okay. So
yeah,
it extends from 42nd to the rear.
Exactly. Yes. So our neighbor has sufficient space to still access their property later on down the road.
I was really more curious as to whether you'd had an opportunity to have a discussion with them, and clearly the concrete has been there for a substantial period of time.
Yes, correct. And we the previous owner we had a discussion with, and they were in support of this project. The current owner, admittedly, the discussions didn't really go anywhere, whereas other neighbors are in support of this, which I'm going to get to in a second. If we go, so the one thing to note though is that the layout of residencies in Lawrenceville, is such a nature that narrow access is not unusual. That is very typical for this neighborhood. Next slide, please. We did want to show that we're open to the possibility of installing a fence along the property line to ensure that they maintain their property and we maintain ours. We understand that that's a separate permit and we would comply with all related requirements. Next slide.
But you haven't gotten to that part of the conversation.
We attempted to have the conversation with them, I think is a good.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Next slide, please. Just very quickly, again, you can look this over. This is the encroachment permit regarding the steps, and the tree would stay there. We love our tree. We don't want it to go anywhere. Next slide, please. And we just wanted to throw up comparables, just showing the fact that parking pads do exist on 42nd Street and in other bordering streets around Lawrenceville. Next slide, please. So these are neighbors who have written letters of support for this project. Specifically our neighbors on our other side and neighbors who are directly across from this proposed project. Their letters are on the following pages, but we also reached out to Lawrenceville United and Lawrenceville Corporation, and they wrote us a letter where they neither oppose nor support this project. But there's one part of their letter that they recommended we read to the board. It's very brief, if that's all right.
We'll accept it as part of the record, but what would you like to point us to?
Sure. On slide 24, Daniel, it's mainly the fact that they have a history of opposing parking pads in Lawrenceville, but in this particular application, they understand that this is a unique situation, and the fact that our property's owner occupied, and there's extenuating circumstances that have led us to kind of come to this decision to seek off-street parking. And not, maximize home sale price or something like that, was very important to them, in addition to the fact that this will beautify the neighborhood.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what we've got.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Those were exquisitely well prepared materials, and we appreciate, I mean, seriously, giving us the full context is very helpful for us to understand. I want to check with Mr. Richardson and Ms. Burton Falk to see if they have any other questions, and then see if anybody's raising their hand seeking to participate in this matter.
No additional
questions.
Okay, so no additional questions from the board. Do we have anybody raising their hand seeking to participate?
Yes, we have a phone line ending in 4712 raising their hand.
Okay. Could the person who is phoning in identify themselves for the record? You'll have to unmute yourself as well. The phone number ending in 4712. If the person who's phoning in would like to participate, you'll have to, there we go. Okay.
Sorry,
Can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Tom Zabielski.
Say that again, please.
Tom Zabielski.
And Mr. Zabielski, do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And can you explain what your position is with respect to this application?
Yeah, I told Andrew we wouldn't want him to do that. And there's a number of reasons. One, he's got 91, 92 inches width when the car can be 84 inches wide. Regardless of what he has today, tomorrow he will buy another car.
Can you, Mr. Before you go a whole lot further, can you explain where your property is in relation to the subject property?
Sure. If you're staring at the subject property, we are the property to the left, 176.
Okay. Okay, so to carry on. So your concern is about the width of what's being proposed.
Yeah, so it's 91 inches, 92 inches in that area. Car can be 84 inches wide. I think a new Tesla is 83 inches. And so what you're talking about is that 9 inches, maybe 10 inches of space to open up a car door when that car of theirs is jammed up against the side of their house, which means every day that they park there, they will be accessing our property. They'll be walking onto our property. And it's just a liability issue. Certainly, they may not look at me and say, well, we're going to sue you because I fell on your property, but their insurance company will. And so I would hope this is a simple matter of common sense to look at this and say, oh, yeah, well, if he parks there, yeah, he's going to have to access that property. Certainly, if they do erect a fence, best of luck to them. But I still think in the world of fences, you have to look at not today, but what the possibilities are. and anybody could park a car along there, filling that space. But it renders the parking space useless in a bigger car. You couldn't even open up the doors. I think the average amount of space you need to open up a car door is 2.5 feet, to access the full width of the car door. So if you look at the 2.5 feet plus the size of a car on both sides, there's not even enough space in that entire opening to support a car. So that's where we are with this, and I look at it as a liability issue.
Can I go back to your position with respect? Because you're on the phone, did you have an opportunity to see the rendering of the fence as a potential, and what's your view about a fence that would separate your property from theirs?
Well, actually, Andrew threatened that when I told him I didn't want the parking pad there. He said, well, I could put up a fence. I said, well, go ahead. It's his property. If he's allowed to do it, he's allowed to do it.
Okay. All right.
Again, I think
Thank you for calling in, because again, it's important for us to understand the context of the neighborhood and perspective of different neighbors. So thank you very much for participating. Did we have anybody else who would like to participate in this matter on the phone?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, so no other hands raised. From the applicant perspective, would you like to respond briefly to the testimony that was presented?
Yes, please. We'll keep this very brief, but just a couple of things. We did have discussions with the owner of that property when it was first purchased, because the previous owner was in support of this, and it was left very open-ended, unfortunately, with no resolve, which is sort of what led to us even being here. So that's one issue. The other is, I think we're happy to have this project be contingent upon the building of a fence to sort of separate that and alleviate our neighbors' concerns, certainly. And the other thing too is, the fact that we do live there. The side property is vacant and is not their primary address. But I think the point of saying that is that, we have previously parked our compact cars in tight spaces, like within a 7.75 inch space, which is, I think, a typical compact car parking space. And you don't need the full width of doors opening to access the vehicle. I hope that made sense.
I understand your position. Okay. Thank you all for being here. And we're going to close the record with respect to this request. And I think we're actually finished for the day. So thank you all for being here this morning, and we're going to go offline.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.